a child's dream, and you were everything to me. Welcome back, everybody, to another session breakdown. This week we're going to talk about one of my favorite songs of ours, Lover's Wake, off of The Love That Remains, our 2016 album. I'm going to let this play a little bit more while people tune in. Hello to Valentin Guzman and Lina Maria on YouTube, Colombia. Very nice. I wouldn't mind being in Colombia right now. Oh, here comes the train outside. It's very loud. I'm going to let this play a little more. Well, I'll play the rest of the video after we break down the session as well, because I love doing that. Hello to Alan on Facebook and Ren. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for tuning in. As always, let us know where you're listening from. Let us know if you have any questions at all, because I'm going to do a deep dive into the story of the song, the production of the song. I'll probably babble about reverb and modulation a lot, that kind of thing. So yeah, if you have any questions, I've got the chat open right here. And thanks for coming back. And I'll talk a little bit about the video too, because this is probably one of my favorite videos we've ever put together. And as usual, the people who put it together were just so generous in their time and their vision to help make it happen. Because this was not, as you can imagine, was not an easy video to make. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well. After the session. And here we are. Welcome back to everyone again. Glad to see some of you guys tuning back in every week. I am Paul from Savoir. Again, if you're just tuning in for the first time, every Wednesday, 1 o'clock, we do a pretty intense or pretty involved session breakdown of our music. We also did some remixes, and we're going to do some live productions as well. I'm still working on how to best do that with the setup. But this week, Valentin asks, how long were you underwater? I was underwater for a long time. But I'll talk about the video in a little bit, because we have some behind-the-scenes photos and stuff, which is one you can see right here. This was the pool we worked in, which was pretty cool. We were able to, with a black background in this area and around, it kind of makes it look like just this huge, endless water space. But in fact, it was just this small pool in Connecticut that we were lucky enough to use. But yeah, today we're going to talk about Lover's Wake, which is the first song off of The Love That Remains. It was the first single off that record. And for me, it's a pretty significant song, because it was the first song I finished for really 2 years. Some of you are probably familiar with the history of the band, but we've gone through a lot of changes, a lot of evolution. I started the band with Deidre Muro, who's the singer on Our Nature, 12 years ago. We had 2 albums out, and then shortly after Our Nature with Dreamers and everything, Deidre decided she just didn't really want to tour anymore, didn't really want to do the project anymore, and that happens. And it was really hard though for me, because especially when you're in a very close partnership creatively, and and friendship and everything, it's very complicated. So really, for about a year after that, I sketched little ideas here and there, but nothing was really coming together. And it was, it was hard to really finish a song and call it a Savoir Adore song after so many years of that sort of specific type of creative process. So for me, when this song was finished, and especially once we released it, once we put the video together, it was pretty meaningful, and pretty, even to today, this is one of my favorite songs. I'll go and watch it, and I'm just so proud of the way it came together, proud of the video, proud of proud of its place in the whole Savoir Adore mythology. So as usual, I'll start by showing you guys this original demo. I actually, for a long, long time, this song was called New Year's Eve. And for no other reason than because I started the song on New Year's Eve 2013. So yeah, I started the song actually before we even finished the Our Nature cycle. I was already writing new ideas. And here's the original demo. Basically continued there with that same pattern. So yeah, I wrote that. I remember it was New Year's Eve 2013. We used to have a studio space right on Grand Street in Williamsburg, and I shared it with the guys in French Horn Rebellion. For some bands, some people might know that band as well. But it was great because we had little writing rooms, and I had my Poly 6, and I had it set up against the wall, and I just remember that patch. It was for anyone with a Poly 6, I think it's one of the presets, like C3 or C4 or something, but it's this really beautiful, warm, simple sine. It's really like a modified sine wave is really all it is, with a little bit of noise and a little modulation, but it was enough to inspire this whole idea, this built around, really just around a C major chord, but then keeping that C in the bass and doing A minor, G major, F in the right hand on the turnarounds, and then back to C major. It's a really simple song in terms of its songwriting, at least for that portion. But it inspired a really strong idea for me, and I love this track, and I listened to it over and over and over again. And for me, what I love too was a little element of, I wanted it, I knew immediately kind of that I wanted it to be the first song on the new record, just because it had this intimate, slow build, this intimacy, this intensity, especially with, this section here. It kind of has a little bit of this, like, again, this sort of African choir, Paul Simon-esque kind of vibe to it, which I loved, and we hadn't really incorporated into our music yet. So that sat, as usual, this demo sat for about a year, and I just didn't know what to do with it, especially when I didn't have any writing partners. I wasn't sure really what the project was going to be for much of 2014. It was a difficult year. But finally, I remember I was encouraged by my manager, Seth, who's also a close friend. He was like, you need to just get out of your element here because I was just, in my little pocket of Williamsburg, Brooklyn, doing the same thing every single day. And so I just rented a place out in LA for a couple weeks, and luckily, was able to write with some amazing people. And the day I landed, I got to LA, I set up my little writing space in this cool little cabin in Echo Park. I was looking for a photo of it and I could not find it, which I'm really mad about. It's the smallest little eco cabin, literally a bed and a little desk where I set everything up. And I ended up getting to write with an amazing singer and songwriter named Leah Hayes, who had a bunch of projects and is an amazing illustrator as well. But we sat down, we got to know each other for an hour, and really in the hour after that, in about hour total, we wrote the chorus and sort of come up with the idea for the rest of the song. This was another one of those titles that, if I can't find it right now, but I probably wrote 5 or 6 different demos called Lover's Wake, but it fits so well for this. And I'll just pull up the lyrics too to kind of talk about this, because truly, for those of you that don't know Our Nature is our second record. And when you're like an indie band, I feel like sometimes the mythology, sometimes the stories, they get lost, because you're not popular enough where it becomes part of this like bigger thing. But if you're a fan and you know the story, Our Nature is this sort of tragic love story. And it ends with a song called Sea of Gold. And for me, this song is basically like it's like the phoenix rising from Sea of Gold. Sea of Gold, the chorus is, I'm living in a sea of gold. Who are you now? I'm living in a sea of gold. And it's the idea of being surrounded by beauty, but being completely alone, kind of being like just looking out at it, but being absolutely, utterly alone. And so for me, Lover's Wake, it represented a sort of moving on from that state. And it meant a lot to me because it also fit with my personal life, with moving on from working with Deidre at the time, also just moving on in terms of like my life and my personal, issues. So it was nice because it really fit into the narrative of Savoir, but then it also really fit my life personally. So, these lyrics are very personal, and a lot of who I'm singing to in this is sort of the story of Our Nature, and also the things that I had to leave behind. Left me in your lover's wake. Wake is the, the disturbance around something in water, but it's also, there's a little bit of this element of like a funeral, something passing. And then also, wake, I wanted to signify sort of this awakening of the spirit of this new person who ends up being, the whole album kind of centered around this idea of the love that remains and how you rebuild that. Hello to everyone who's just tuning in Greece, and thank you, Drake Johnson. I love this song as well. Hello to our friends in Argentina and Greece. So yeah, these are the lyrics right here. We were brightly shining like a child's dream. You were everything to me. Colors fade around me. And that was, what's nice about this song is I really wanted it to be patient. I wanted it to be this slow, purposeful build, a little bit more of an artistic angle, less of a, it's not really like a traditional pop song, like per se some of our other songs at the time were. And so it was a little bit deeper in that sense. We were brightly shining like a child's dream. You were everything to me. That, sums up sort of Our Nature in a way, these characters, and also the way I felt about that era in my life. Everything was sort of perfect in almost a, innocent, pure way. And then this is the moving on from that. So yeah, let me just show you guys this session, of course. I could babble about the concept of this song forever. But it was really just that synth part for a long time, which is, this right here, which is just a C. It's just a C bass note and then C major chord over it, right here, wherever it comes in. We were bright. And I realized after that, I think I said something about being 17 in there, and I was like, I'm going to change these lyrics. So let me just play that synth for you really quick, it's an interesting synth because it actually has a weird glitch in it, because it's an analog synth, which is right here, this Poly 6. And I played the top chords separately in order to make it cleaner. But you can hear that little metallic ringing. I couldn't get rid of that, but it ends up being a nice little character. So that's really the basis of the song, and to me that was the instrumental hook as well. So I always wanted to honor that. I always wanted to present that in a way. And then part two, what's cool about this song is that there's an intro and there's a first verse, and then it's a minute. You're a minute into the song, usually you would like rush to a chorus, but for me here, it's an instrumental release of emotion, And as you can tell in the original, it was that vocal part, which I'll show you guys down here. This is what I recorded that first day on New Year's Eve. It's nice. It's pretty, that's just a breath. That's just another breath. And then, I mean, it's probably just a C major chord, but just extended in a way. So I knew I always wanted that to be patient. And then after that, again, this is one of those songs where I of course got feedback that was, let's cut it down, let's edit it. And I'm glad I didn't listen. But I'll play you guys sort of how it developed. It's this poly 6, and then the vocal I really love too, because I ended up I think... We were brightly shining. Yeah, there's literally no reverb on this vocal, which is in stark contrast to the lushness of the chorus. But I'll just play it for you. We were brightly shining, like a child's dream. And you were everything to me. So for me, that was, something we don't usually do is have the vocals completely dry like that. And I thought it was really nice because, again, everything about this song I wanted to accent. This character is really just rebuilding their life and is alone and is figuring it out and is looking back and is looking forward all at the same time and is kind of, it's a sad thing, but it's also very hopeful. It's moving on from that. And so I wanted to think about that with each element of the production, and that was kind of step one, was that vocal. And then again, we have that little refrain. You were everything to me. With these vocals. I'll let the instrumental play and then I'll talk about it a little bit. Again, that was really about letting the song breathe and build naturally, and I think that's something that's missing in a lot of what people would call indie pop these days. Everything is so trimmed down. It's so trimmed down that it loses any sort of, I think, organic, natural growth. Everything feels a little bit rushed, a little bit edited. Obviously, there's still many artists doing it a little bit more patiently, but I just think this kind of music, it has a more of an emotional content when you allow things to sort of develop naturally, And this part especially, this was a 1 minute into the song, and this is a full 30 seconds of just an instrumental break. But it was really fun. So it started with that vocal, with the harmony stack, and I put together this drum track, which ended up, really a focus on the kick. There's not really a backbeat or there's a halftime backbeat, but not until the chorus. And I'll just play this drums for you. So this is really fun to put together because it was all chopped up, all audio samples. This is a kick sample that Ben, our drummer, and I had made upstate. I think it's like a combination of a few things. And as well as a sub kick. Then I basically put together this tom pattern, which was a combination of, our our toms upstate. So here are those. It's printed with the Echo Boy, so it's like a Space Echo Boy. And then these are filtered Emu toms, like super filtered. The Drumulator was a really cool sampler back in the 80s, and I forgot who originally told me about them, but they're just, if you can find the Drumulator samples, it's like instant 80s vibe, especially those toms. The toms are amazing. So when you put that all together, again, it's really fun. And then I wanted like a kind of, roll and step in kick room pattern. So I had this boom, 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 boom. And then all with just offbeat hi-hats here. Oh, it's another kick here. Yeah. And then the snare comes in, super washed out. So that's really the drum bass. And, from there, there's some little bit of hits, there's a transitional element, there's the vocal, there's the poly 6, and then something that I thought was really important is having some sort of 16th note arp. And if you've tuned in, you notice I do this very, very often, but it's nice to subdivide things harmonically, if that makes sense. So don't always just think about drums as being rhythmic instruments. Think about an arpeggiator or a guitar, because often you get more of a rhythmic energy from those instruments than you do from the drums. And so here are 3 layers of ARP. These are all the, let's see if I can open it without crashing my computer, shall we? Is it this guy? Yeah, so check this out. This is Nexus, which is a pretty popular plugin, especially for EDM production. It's really modern sounding, it's a really modern sounding synth. Let's see which, I don't know what sound this was. Yeah. This one can be a little glitchy, but this is a digital xylophone, yeah. But if you hear that, it's all about the percussion. It's EQ'd, it's distorted with a decapitator, and Filtergate is a really simple tool within Pro Tools where you can turn a sound and basically chop it up, but it chops it up with a filter, which is cool. So you can even actually filter it down if you want to, which is cool. Let me just hide that so it doesn't freeze. But all the ARPs together, added an extra sort of subdivision for that section. So basically, that ARP gave us even a more thing. You can hear that against the drums. And then after that, it was really just about opening up. It just really interacts well with that main synth line, too. And after that, I figured washy guitars are the natural next step, I would think. So first we did one of these. Ooh-wee. So that's Reverb is all in the box. That is actually sent to 2122. Yeah, so I used to use a plugin called Altiverb for reverb, but this is called convolution reverb, which means that the reverb is actually modeled after a real space. I don't actually know how it works. I'm not really that smart when it comes to digital engineering stuff like this, but I know this is a specific type of reverb that actually models the room spaces it's in. This is from the Lexicon 480. It's an Auto Park. It is the coolest, biggest reverb. It's got this nice kind of sheen to it. It's got a really nice sparkly modulation, so you can hear it. Check it out. That's the reverb that kind of continues there, that tail. Valentin Guzman on YouTube asks, do you have any kind of special sound that you use in all your songs? I wouldn't say all I wouldn't say all our songs, but there are very often sounds that I will, if I fall in love with the sound for a specific record, I will definitely, I'll end up using it. For example, on Full Bloom, which is our newest record, ended up using Serum a bunch, and there is a patch which for, maybe a few of you know the song Body Heat. Let's see. So I fell in love with this bass sound, ended up using it on like 5 or 6 songs. That's not it. That's not it either. That's it. So that bass sound is basically a modified version of PL Spacer. So that's one sound. But also, for me, a lot of it comes down to processing and effects. So, for example, on The Love That Remains, there is tons of this specific reverb because I just love the way that it sounds. It also, whether or not it's completely obvious to the listener or myself rather at the end, I feel like when you create similar processing, it gives the album a certain world to live in. So for example, any type of lush synth or guitar, it's going into that auto park reverb. And so I like to think that the lushness or the space or the atmosphere on The Love That Remains is the same. Same goes for Our Nature. There were plugins and processing that I used that was very, very similar. But other than that, I mean, a lot of our whole approach, which was, me and Deidre back in the day and me and Lauren now, a lot of our approach is just an experimentation. So, for the Full Bloom also, we use the Roland Juno a ton. So like basically the number 11 preset brass filtered down, that sound is on half of Full Bloom because it's just the perfect synth pad. And then some of the kicks and claps, I use very simple MPC claps and stuff all the time. I just think that this is actually different. My bad. That's a Vengeance clap, but I'll use the standard MPC clap on tracks so much. I just think it's perfect. This ghost kick drum and this ghost snare, this is a Lynn snare sample right here. This is a great sound. Listen to that. Woo! Send that snare drum to the auto park. That's the move. So yeah, sounds like that. And I'll, without giving too much away, it's like when I work on songs, especially sketches, I have my folder, Paul samples, and I have my favorites, and some of which I've made, some of which I've found. And I always recommend to producers, especially when they're starting out, just listen to sounds, especially if you're a sample-based producer, if you're an electronic producer, spend time with your sounds because it makes so much more sense to find really great sounds than it does to try and overwork other people's sounds or sounds that you just find on Splice or something like that, and organize it all. Like I have kicks, and these are all my favorite kicks for different styles of music, and I'll usually layer them in or balance them between that and whatever live drums I'm able to record for a project. But yeah, moving on here, I ended up recording a bunch of guitar for that section because I wanted that to sort of shine next. So I'll show you guys that. It's a nice sparkle one up here. And if you want to get that sound, I already hid that because I printed that effect, but I believe, oh, here it is, sparkle. Oh, it's already printed. Never mind. But the way I got that is there's something called a Valhalla sparkle verb. Is that what it's called? Shimmer verb. Sorry, Valhalla shimmer verb printed with reverb. That's that beautiful sound. I'll just show you guys the guitars here. So then it comes in. At this point in time, I was pretty obsessed with playing guitar figures that are just the top 4 strings. It's kind of like the Nile Rodgers approach, but also a lot of, I grew up listening to The Smiths a ton, and so many of those famous guitar parts are just, super bright, beautiful, arpeggiated top 3 strings, top 4 strings. It's the same thing that's in Dreamers, but I end up just writing parts around those shapes, and like that, which is, if you're looking on a guitar, it's something along. It's like, it's that shape. You can see here, it's across the top. It's like, 0044 or 005533. That's in the C shape, F C sus. But you get these really cool things that you can play those figures and they work really, really nice in a C major scale. And especially when you layer them, you get stuff like this, which also hints a little bit at like the Ghanaian high life music or Nigerian music, South African music. It's a very influenced figure. Vampire Weekend does that kind of stuff too. Obviously, Paul Simon, Graceland. But it's those top 3 strings and then layered even more here, harmonized. But it was nice. I really enjoyed that because there weren't many moments, I think when your natural inclination is to write sort of traditional pop music, you often rush through sections without just letting instrumentals speak for themselves. So that was really nice. So at this point, we're at verse 2, and it's already 1 minute 30 seconds into the song. Verse 2. Is where Leah came in and really, elevated this song in a really beautiful way. And what was cool too is the way we processed her vocals. It sort of it sits in this sort of lushness of the song, layered in with mine and harmonized. But it also was this nice shift because it's almost like a different character within the song singing. And so this is the pre-chorus here. So some nice guitar stuff there, but I'll just show you these vocals. I love how they came together. Here. Oh, it's here, sorry. This is Leah and I singing. We keep running from the ones we love the most, and then I know. She just has such an amazing, like, breathy emotion to the quality of her voice. And I think that might have even been the vocal she put down when we were just writing the demo. Or perhaps we did some more later. But this one, and that's just some reverb drench stuff. But, it came together. And then the chorus was the big shift. So up until now, this was about a year after starting the song. I just didn't know what to do. I tried to these high intensity, dancey things for the chorus. And then finally, Leah proposed, why don't we just take it down? And I remember she played a very simple chord progression. And the melody is just, it's really a C major scale up against it. But what's so beautiful about it is that the chords don't really change at all. So that's just the method sometimes it's good. If you're ever stuck in a song session or writing, you don't have to have a chord every bar. You don't even have to have a chord every 2 bars. Sometimes just try and write a melody over one chord and see what happens, and you'll end up with certain amounts of tension, certain amounts of and certain harmonies that you would normally not think of. So this is the main. So it's basically just, I think that's a G major. It's 4 bars of G major. And then there's a weird sus, I think, over, I don't know exactly how to play it anymore. But this is on a Juno. Yeah. It's just a really cool, patient, again, a very like patient chord progression, and Leah had this melody that was just da 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 da, which I thought was so cool, and we built off of that, and it's just such a long phrase, which was really nice, because at the time a lot of other songs, like even Dreamers included, you can stay where you are, I will wake you, everything is sort of it's short and catchy and kind of plays off of one another, but this is basically the chorus is just one long phrase. And I'll just play, I think it was layered in with a D550. Ooh, that's pretty. That's a very cheesy sound, isn't it? But like, that one's cheesy too. But it's beautiful when you combine it out. Woo! Beautiful. So I'm just going to hide the vocal for a sec so we can talk about the instrumental. Other cool thing here was that it was, as soon as it was this long sort of thing, I actually felt like it wanted to drop into this almost like halftime, kind of almost, it's not really, I wouldn't consider hip hop at all, but it's certainly more of like a down tempo dance thing, less of like a rock thing. Halftime here. And a cool sub kick underneath it. So it's basically just a kick drum, claps, hi-hats on the offbeat, and a really nice tone kick, which is I think it's abstract. It's called Abstract Bass from Sonic Couture. So that's basically the basis of it, which was really fun because it was something we had never really done before, especially having like a very pure tone that's like an 808 style kick, a really clean, pure tone thing. And then all the harmony above it in the mid-range is super lush, And then on top of it, too, this very long, kind of beautiful soaring melody, which I'll just play the melody for you guys now. Way down here in this giant session.
Left me in your lover's wake, I can't let go of our mistakes. I wanna suffer. Others never compensate that drowning in their lover's wake.
And we were like, I remember when we were writing this, we were thinking about this kind of overly stylized, kind of melodramatic 80s vibe, which the inspiration for this was very much Blood Orange. If you know Dev Hynes, his work is just incredible, but it kind of oozes with this like nostalgic, sentimental, very stylized 80s vibe, all drum machines and like, it's fun though. It's fun to write from that angle. Sometimes you just need to pretend to be someone else. And the delivery of that too, and we just put a ton of the Valhalla Ubermod. As you can tell, it's heavily modulated.
Left me in your lover's wake, I can't let go of our mistakes.
Probably could have sang that better, but hindsight, you know what they say. So once that was there, again, send it to the auto park, and here's the complete package. Talk about this section. This is, again, at this point, At this point, this song was already pretty weird for us in terms of the structure. So I really wanted to just take it a step further and have a very huge instrumental bridge. And so with that, with that melody at the end, it just kind of made sense. And we always had these nice guitars here again, more just sparkly guitars. And so those are layered in, and then having a really nice delay swell. I'll show you, I think it's automated probably, yeah. So down here, I have an echo boy. This is always fun to do. Leah's vocal, and mine for that matter too, at the end. With you. The delay catches that word, spirals up. And then it's fun. I always recommend automating reverb, automating delay. You can create something really, really fun that's kind of, supernatural sounding, because you wouldn't normally get to just hear those sounds in life, So basically send her vocal to this echo boy, and then you'll see the feedback, which is the amount of times the delay repeats, increases towards the end of the phrase, and it's called self-oscillating, where you'll hear the note start to distort, which is how a tape delay would work. With you. Gets a lot of color and character. And then the question was, what comes there? It wants to explode, it really does. And so I went for it. And I'll show you guys how it started. It really all started with this guitar part. Or sorry, it might have actually been on a synth. Yeah, it was the Juno. Which is a bunch of basically inversions of C major, F, C over E, F over C, but all on the guitar, and I can't really... I actually don't know how to play it anymore. We haven't played this song in maybe 4 years. So it kind of just disappears from my brain. But that's the main part. So I thought it'd be really cool if the track exploded into sort of this like instrumental breakdown, much heavier pulse, and then this is the lead line. The dream is over now. So from there, and I think this is the main Juno too. Yeah. That's the first thing I wrote when Leah and I were writing together. And what was so cool about that part is that because it's all moving around above a C major, I decided, I was like, the bass line for this entire bridge is just going to be C, except for maybe like one or two moments. And it creates this is the interplay from that. Sub kick. That's the only time it goes down C, G, F. So it actually goes down the a little bit down the octave. And I apologize if I'm really talk about this part a lot, because I'll be honest, this is maybe my favorite moment in all of our songs. I love this part. So I'm gonna talk about it. So basically, that ended up, I'm gonna mute some of the things that are crazier. So here is the sub doesn't really always come through. I always recommend if you have a sub bass and you want it to be really featured as a melodic instrument, not a melodic instrument, but just as a featured instrument, you need to either saturate the mid-range or layer it with a high bass support. So here's another, same 808, octave higher. Hear that? Without it, with it. So it just makes, oh sorry, that's actually an electric bass. So that helps it cut through. So at that point we've got, here I'll put all the drums in too now so you guys can hear it. It's all straight. It's really fun. It's an extension really of the original instrumental, and I think that's why I inspired it. That's the high tone. See that? That's like the high sub octave on the 808. And same thing here to go down the octave. What's nice there is actually a little harmony. Don't be afraid to harmonize the bass, everybody. Don't be afraid. Your mixing engineer will hate you, but don't be afraid of it. It's a pain in the butt to mix. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep layering stuff. So once we have the drums, we have the bass, and then the main pad. Then it's all about the fancy stuff on top. This Nexus, again, this is the same arpeggiator with noise and a little bit of tone blended in. And then this Prophet 08 sound, which, yeah. Again, that's just a little, maybe it's too much, but I think it helped add a little bit more. Oh, but this Moog, this is Alex, our guitar player, played this part, I remember, and it's just killing. It's on a memory Moog. So this swells. And then cuts out. It really adds a certain tension to these sections. Again, this is like the melodramatic 80s thing. It's very like Genesis or Talking Heads. And then acoustic guitar, which really helped cut through the mix. So let's check this out. This is 3 layers of acoustic guitars. That's definitely not an acoustic guitar. It's a guitar, which is Alex. Alex played these, which is basically the... it's the synth part, but on a guitar, which is really beautiful. So that's the guitar in there. Oh yeah, I put these acoustic guitars in later, with super lots of reverb on it. And I think when Claudius, so this was another one, like we talked about Heaven last week. Claudius Mittendorfer mixed this song as well and did an amazing, amazing job with it. It was not an easy song to mix, but he really featured those a little bit more than I did, which was really, really cool. Oh, I should probably unmute that. So yeah, and here I'll do the vocals last, but one of the turning points I remember for me in this bridge was the addition of Andrew's bass part. The bass, electric bass, all of a sudden, I basically told him to just like play a bunch of stuff. And after a few takes, we put together this, which I'll leave the sub kick in so you can hear the root note. So it's all against the C, but he basically treated the bass as a lead instrument, and it just is so cool. So this is that. Lots of chorus, lots of distortion. And it's so cool because, I mean, I'll show you guys the original demo. When I left LA in October of 2014, the original demo actually had that bridge section already, and it was like this. Here, where is it? Here. This is after Leah and I's session. Yeah. Whoops. No. This is actually the wrong file. Well, anyway, the point is, what I was going to show you, that originally it was just a kick drum. It was just a kick drum and the main Juno part. Alexis Mesmak asked, "Hello, do you speak French?" No. I do not speak French. I studied French for 10 years. I speak a little bit. Je parle français un peu, but not very well. So I used to, I would say I'm a Francophile. I love French culture. I love the French language. At a certain time, I was able to have a conversation, but not anymore. I'm sorry. But hopefully go back there, brush up, practice a little bit. So yeah, it was originally really just the sub kick and the synth. And that's the Juno line. So it really, I remember when the bass line came in too, it just made a huge difference. And this is what it all sounds like. No vocals yet. With the build-up. Let me get the build-up in there. Gotta have the build-up. Because that's part of what makes it. Adds all the tension. From there, I just had this this idea to sort of, let's see, is it easier to mix up the bass and subharmonic frequencies than when the rest of the track is quiet and ambient like that? Totally. I think that's part of the reason why it works, is that it's also about space, you know? Malosifer on YouTube is asking these questions. He said, usually you have to cut bass or it fights the mix for headroom. Absolutely. You know, and that is also something, it's tricky. It's one of the hardest things to mix, I think, is like sub bass that then also cuts through the track musically. And, you know, people listen on all sorts of speakers. It's like you're listening on an Amazon Echo or iPhone headphones, or, you know, some people have a hi-fi system at home, but most people don't, you know? And so to mix that, it definitely makes it easier in this situation, because you can tell there's so much space. So all those really long waveforms, all those long notes, they're pretty easy to stick out. Plus there's nothing else really in the low end. The kick drum is once every bar, you know, boom, boom, boom. There's a lot of space to be able to mix that up. But it's also, you know, it's also just still a challenge though, because you want those bass notes to be consistent. So I will say, like, the way, like, I'm happy with how it sounds here. This was my like production mix, but you know, probably in like 10 minutes or so, I'll play the video and you'll hear Claudius's mix, the final mix. And again, that's Claudius Mittendorfer, who did the whole record. He really compressed and controlled the subharmonic frequencies in a way where there was this beautiful pillow, but there's also this beautiful sub bass, and it never, it doesn't really, like, you don't run out of space, you know? The track still breathes, the track still feels loud, it still feels present. So yeah, I mean, it is a challenge, but I think, you know, the arrangement definitely helps as well. And this section, the bridge, probably was the hardest to mix, because I mean, look at the bass elements I have. I have a sub kick doing one thing, and I have a harmony in the sub kick here. And then I have a lead bass instrument. So all together, this is, you know, 4 bass parts. They all sort of interact well though, because they're filtered, you know, like this C bass support. There's not really any sub bass here. All the sub is here. So if you are gonna layer bass, always think about your EQ. You know, like that sub bass is basically just below 150 and then a little bit around 1K to like poke through. The lead bass, or sorry, the C bass support, this is all 100 to 1K. Tone kick print here is all, you know, that's like 800 to 3K. And then this one is the one that's the harmony. You know, so every bass note, even though I'm calling it a bass note, that's not even bass frequencies, but the bass part is carved in a way between instruments so that there's space for everything. And that's really, really important, or else you're going to run out of room and the track's going to you're going to end up with a track that's either distorted or pretty quiet or a combination of both. This track is called Bells and Whistles. I want to know what that sounds like. Well, certainly bells. Nice. Something tells me that that's Ben Marshall. That's our drummer. That's his kind of playing right there. There was some fun stuff because I wanted to have, this is layers and layers of us playing in the live room. Woo. Clap. That's fun. So the last thing in that section was I went back to Los Angeles a year later, and Leah had some ideas for just some vocal parts over the top, and so she recorded these. We did this really quick just to have a few things, and I edited when I got home, and they actually made a huge difference because she had these hits, which are really cool. And then lyrically, the last thing that was left is after this whole song, here's the lyrics just so we talk about this again. This is all a preparation, looking back on our nature, the story of that, and also for me personally, left me in your lover's wake. I can't let go of our mistakes. I want to suffer. And that's sort of the darkness in the song, is that it's about sort of wanting to spend time and sort of like, in a way, that's where the idea for the video came out too, is that you're almost drowning. You're drowning in this idea. You're drowning in this suffering, but you're also, you're dealing with it, because you kind of want it. It's weird, And I think that's a complex emotion that probably a lot of people feel, especially when they lose someone or when they're, they're moving out of a relationship, trying to move on. You can't let go of our mistakes. I want to suffer. Others never compensate. They're drowning in their lover's wake. I want to suffer with you. And that's sort of where the song ends up. But then, at the same time, it's the same way Dreamers acted on our nature. This is an introduction to The Love That Remains. This is kind of a statement of it's almost like the first step to getting better is admitting you have a problem. Is that the saying? But yeah, this is sort of admitting that there's something wrong and kind of making sense of it. So that chorus, the last thing to say there, the dream is over now. That's what I realized, and that is a little nod to Dreamers, because for me at that time, we were, things were just getting better. The band was on a trajectory. And then unfortunately, this just happens a lot. I think people always think that, everything is just supposed to keep going perfectly, but there's so many complicated dynamics that are a part of being in a band and being in a creative partnership. It's like your friendship, it's business, it's emotional. There's so much that goes into it. So sometimes things just take a turn and get hard, So for me, that was kind of a nod at the time, just to, again, myself admitting, okay, this dream, that dream of our nature and things that were happening, that's over now. And then from there, I was able to kind of move on. And so I sing Those Dreams Are Over Now, and Leah does some really cool ad-libs. And this is how the whole instrumental came together. And to me, this is the real emotional climax of the song. That's the whole part. I was trying to find the Lover's Wake video treatment, but I can't seem to find it. Oh, maybe I did find it. I'm just gonna look for a second because it'd be cool to show you guys this. Oh, I have the first cut and stuff. Oh yeah. Okay, so I'll show this to you guys as well. But so yeah, basically. Ooh, cool. Claudio is tuning in from Indonesia. Hello, Claudio. That is very far from here. but thanks for tuning in. I think we have a pretty international audience, which is part of what's so nice about doing these in the afternoon, because sometimes with the nighttime stuff, it's mostly just people in the States here and South America. But yeah, that was the bridge. That was the climax of the song. And then from there, there's almost this release into one more statement of the chorus. And there's not much difference there, except I wanted the lushness to just get even bigger. So there's some really cool layers of guitars I'll show you right here. They're just washed out. This is a Jazz Master with distortion, the Vox, Boss RV5 reverb. And then some nice sparkly guitars on top. But that's basically all that was added in that last chorus, because to me at that point in the song, it was just this release, you know? It was just a restatement of what had already happened, a sort of coming down from that peak. And this is what it all sounded like. Another build into the end. I thought that was a fun, you know, one more moment of drama to end the song. So that again is just that's a feedback loop on the Echo Boy, which you can see right there. That is just a swell and then drop down the volume. There's a beautiful I want to show. There's some of these ad libs were just great that Leah did, and that was the one over the ending. That sort of scream is a really nice moment of intensity to end the song, and that's what swells. Yeah. So that all gets caught into the Echo Boy and swells away. And that's the song. That's Lover's Wake. That's the full session. Again, if you have any other questions, I've got the chat room open. I figured I'd just show you guys a little bit about the music video, because that was such a fun process. You know, along these lines, as you can tell, I was pretty connected to this song. There was a lot of kind of a strong concept, a lot of emotion connected to it. So I really, really wanted to have a music video that, you know, that honored that, but also enhanced the whole idea, enhanced the whole concept. So I remember writing this and like just becoming obsessed with this idea of, you know, drowning, literally drowning in this idea. And so I remember I wrote, this is probably like the finished treatment, but I ended up developing and writing all of this with Lauren's wife, Kate Hammond, who's an amazing producer and works in film and production. And I remember we sat down and I basically pitched this idea to her. And this was so cool too, because this was early on when Lauren and I were just starting to write together and starting to finish songs. She was starting to sing with the band. And then to be able to work with Kate and her on this video, it was a nice sort of like, it was just a way of sort of really working creatively together and seeing what could happen. And it, you know, I think still to this day, it's one of the things I'm most proud of. So it was an amazing experience all around. But, you know, as I said here, this is sort of how often music videos are just pitched. It's like you write a concept and then you discuss it and you see who's crazy enough to help you shoot it for way less money than they deserve to be paid, because it's just really, really hard. But yeah, I mean, basically here it is. The track begins where Savoir left off, waking up from a dream of love and coming to grips with reality, but desperately wanting to slip back into that dream to suffer through the fantasy just a little bit more. I want the music video to represent that same idea, drowning in a beautiful fantasy. So, you know, as I said, this was a time I was pretty intense with these emotions, with the melodrama, but it was what it was, you know, and it made that record what it was. So it all kind of led to this underwater performance, which, you know, we then realized after storyboarding and stuff, it needed to have some choreography, it needed to have some sort of build. And that's where we found these amazing actresses and also dancers who they actually had just performed. I need to look up because I forgot. I actually originally tried to get a few of the dancers from the Dreamers video, but they were like, we're not going to go underwater for 5 minutes. And by 5 minutes, it was like 5 hours. Jess is one. I can't remember their names because they were just there for that day. Oof. Well, I'll find it at some point. But they were amazing. They had experience with the underwater choreography, which was like incredible. We got lucky enough to also find a pool that was chlorine free so that I could actually open up my eyes. But yeah, you know, this is basically the timeline of it and what we wanted it to look like. And from there, we went for it. And, you know, here's some shots from the shoot, which was also dangerous because these are very high voltage film lights, you know, they're meant for camera shoots. So we had to sandbag them. We actually had to have a paramedic on site. It was involved. That's Kate. It's one of the two. Gosh, I feel I just should find out their names really quick because it's just, you know, it's a nice thing to do. I wish I could find it. Oy. Anyway, I will write it in the caption later. But they were amazing, and they were such, you know, troopers for being in the water and holding their breath. They were much better than I was. I had like panic attack after panic attack trying to get the first verse down because that whole first verse is one shot, and so it was sped up footage, you know, that was then slowed down. So I only had to sing and be underwater for 30 seconds, but that is a lot longer than it seems when you're also singing and you have your eyes open. So here's another shot. There's me in that pool for a long time. There's Lauren and Kate shooting. I forgot his name. I'm also terrible. This was a long time ago. You know, it's 4 years ago, one night. But here's just some day of imagery. And they actually changed from the white to the red, which you'll see in the music video, to sort of represent that shift in the bridge. There's me diving down. I think this is one part where I might have panicked. Kind of. Oh, yeah, that's where I started laughing. And there's the red, which is beautiful. But yeah, that was basically the whole process. And we were very, very lucky that it all came together because we only were able to shoot for about 4 hours. So, you know, I got my shit together. I finally sang it properly. And I'll show you guys the final product. So again, this was Lover's Wake. Thanks for hanging. Thanks for listening. If you guys have any other questions, I will be hanging with the chat room open right here for a little bit while I play the music video. So again, this is the final product. Claudius Mittendorfer did the mix. This is Lover's Wake, the official music video. Whoops. There it is. I'm just watching myself. It's kind of funny.
We were bright
credits for all the wonderful people that helped make that possible. Yes, Jacqueline and Jess. I thought that's what it was. So Jacqueline and Jess, twins, amazing, amazing performers, dancers, actresses. They made that video what it was, along with everyone else on that list, to be honest. That was not an easy one. That was kind of like a reoccurring theme because Dreamers was like 25 degrees when we filmed that, and that was pretty brutal as well. But this one was more of a physically demanding for myself experience. So yeah, that was Lover's Wake. Oh, my volume. Thank you, Gothic Media. Gothic Medic. You saved it. I just said Jacqueline and Jess were the two dancers, actresses. They were incredible in this. But all the credits are there. If you want to watch the video again, of course, it's on our YouTube, Savoir Adore. The song, along with The Love That Remains, is on Spotify. Savoir Adore, of course. And this was our breakdown of Lover's Wake. Thanks again for everyone that tuned in across the board. We're on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. I would do these on Instagram, but it's vertical versus this. It's a whole process. So hopefully we'll see you all again soon. I'll be back next week for one of these, but also Saturday night. See, there it is. Yeah, Gothic Medic. You should do that. That would make sense. It's a great name. I'm Paul from Savoir Adore. That was fun, as always. Hope everyone is doing well out there. Hope everyone is safe and healthy. And we'll see you this weekend. All right, signing off. Bye, guys.